We will get started here momentarily. We are just letting everybody load into the Zoom app. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the Small Business Boot Camp for this Tuesday, August 2nd. I can't believe it's August already, but time is flying by. I'm Robert Theobald, your host. I'm the Vice President of Small Business Services and the Small Business Ombudsman at the Arizona Commerce Authority. And we're glad to have you with us today. As we like to do, for those that are new to the boot camp, we like to start out by recognizing our community partners. This is just a sample of our community partners that we have used on the boot camp, and we could not do these boot camps without their time, their effort, and their expertise. So again, those that are new, the Small Business Boot Camp is designed for small businesses to help them prepare, plan, and grow. It is a statewide initiative supported by all of those community partners and many more. And not only is it our Tuesday morning 9 a.m. webinars that we do every week, it is also a content library and a series of workshops with our community partners. And you'll see some information on one of those workshops here later. But let's jump into the content library piece, because this is one of the amazing parts of the Small Business Boot Camp. So starting with the first webinar that we did back in April of 2020, we recorded nearly all of our sessions. There's a few that we couldn't record due to licensing agreements. But we have over 200 recorded webinars stored in our content library. These are by our expert community partners sharing their expertise. And you can go back and review them at any time. There's no cost. It's just on the bottom of the bootcamp website, bottom part of the page, you'll see our content library. And there's 7 different categories you can search for, or you can just click view more webinars and it will pull up all of them in sequential order. And you can go through, for example, if you knew there was one, about a month or 2 ago that you wanted to watch, you can just click on view more webinars and scroll back and find it, a few links down. But it's a great resource that you can share with others. You can share those links with other people that say, hey, watch this video or watch this webinar. It's available to you, and it's an amazing resource. And we are excited to be able to have that for everybody to use. So with that, we want to jump in. The ACA has a number of other programs that support small businesses. We have our small business services, we have our workforce division, and then we have our Arizona MEP, our manufacturing extension partnership. All these programs are here to support the small businesses throughout the state. So regardless of where you're at in Arizona, we can help out. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us, and I can connect you with any of these divisions if needed. Another great program that we have for entrepreneurs is our small business checklist. And this is designed to help entrepreneurs identify the commonly requested licensing, registration, and compliance needs at the local, state, and federal levels. There's also a lot of other great information in there. And so you can go into our checklist on our website, and there's 2 options you have. One is the very detailed checklist where you're going to check boxes based on the information you need from a number of different areas. Or if it's just a quick, simple question you might have, you can use our virtual assistant, Sally. You can see her right there in the corner of the screen, and she can help you with a number of other pieces as well. So I encourage everybody to go on and give Sally a try with some of your questions you may have about your business and expanding it, or registration or compliance, licensing in other areas. Now, for some quick business updates, there's some things you wanted to share that are very important. One is coming soon is the ADOT DBE and Small Business Transportation Expo. We're going to post a link in the chat for this program. It is a great program hosted by Arizona Department of Transportation. And don't be fooled by the piece that says Transportation Expo. If you're a small business, there's going to be information, presentations, and other things on this at this expo that will benefit you. It is a great program that they have, and so definitely check that out. Also, if you're a tech business, you've got some innovative thing you've done with your business to launch it. The Arizona Innovation Challenge is the state's premier business plan competition. It's actually one of the nation's premier business plan competitions, and it's for Arizona businesses. And they just opened the application window for the next Arizona Innovation Challenge. It is open until the end of August. So we're going to post the link for information on that program. in the chat. It is an excellent program, and you'll be able to see some of the results from businesses that have gone through that program and been finalists and receive some of the benefits that the awarded winners get. So definitely check that out as well. Again, the information for both these programs will be posted in the chat. So with that, we want to look at some of our upcoming sessions. So next week on Tuesday, we have rebuilding and refocusing your team. This is going to be with our friends at the University of Arizona. We're excited to have them with us again. And then on Thursday of next week is one of our workshops. And so it's a grow your business, access to capital and other resources. We know as existing businesses are looking to grow and scale, to do so, they need access to capital. And so we brought in Wells, we have a lender in Wells Fargo. We have a law firm with Gallagher and Kennedy that are going to touch on those that might be looking for venture capital investment as opposed to debt lending. We're bringing in the accounting firm of REDW to talk about some of the accounting practices and bookkeeping needs you may have as you look to grow and look to get some funding either from debt or VC or venture capital. Blue Cross Blue Shield is going to be there to talk about some of the programs that they have or that you need, not just for Blue Cross Blue Shield, but in general that you want to look at as you're growing your employee base. And we also have the Small Business Development Center talking about the programs that they have to help support those that are looking to grow and scale their business as well. So this is really focused not necessarily on the startup businesses, but existing businesses that are looking to grow. But it's a both in-person and virtual, and the in-person attendance is almost full, but we will have a virtual option, and it will be recorded as well. So please join us for that. And then on Tuesday, August 16th, how to grow your customer base using the power of local SEO. And this is with our friends at Localfy. They do an awesome job with local SEO. And so please join us for that one. So with that, we're going to wrap up my intros and we're going to turn the time over to our presenter today. We have Tamara Kemper, the founder of Process Mavens, and we're really looking forward to the session she has today. There's a handout that Faith is going to post a link to in the chat, so you can access that. It will follow along with Tamara's presentation. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and some housekeeping. If you have questions, we love to answer questions, but we ask that you put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a little link that says Q&A. We want to use the Q&A for questions, specifically questions, and use the chat for interaction that Tamara may ask for, and that way the questions don't get lost in amongst the interaction. So with that, Tamara, it is all yours.
Thank you so much, Robert. I'm so happy to be here with all of you today. Thank you, Faith, for putting the worksheet in. But before we even get started on anything, I just want to talk about, I want to make sure you're in the right room. So we have a little poll to see if this session is going to be relevant for you. So which of these phrases do you find yourself saying to yourself the most? Is it, I'm so frustrated, I keep getting the same questions from my team over and over again? Is it, I trained them on this already? Or I'll just do it myself? Which of those really feels like that's you? Right, I'm not sure where we go to see the results. There we go. All right, just like I guessed. It's always I'll do it myself, but it seems like this is going to be relevant for all of you. Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to kind of blame external things out of our control, but today's session is going to be about kind of taking ownership of this beautiful thing called delegation. So I don't mean to brag, but I run this business where we focus almost entirely on delegation and documenting processes. So I'm a pretty good delegator, but I met my match when I met this guy. And he was about 4 years old at the time. His name is Keaton. And here he is putting together, I don't know, it was like some crazy 1,500 piece Lego set. So I know the kid knows how to follow instructions. I was not concerned about that. And so one day he, just was being extra helpful. And I said, hey, would you like to go ahead and help me with lunch for the family? And he was excited because 4-year-olds really like to help with things like that. And so he'd been on a peanut butter and jelly kick. And so I was like 95% certain that was what he was going to do. I walked away helping his little sister. He's doing this thing in the kitchen. He's getting the peanut butter. I'm like, okay, he's got this. But then when I came back, he had made this. And that, my friends, is probably the world's first and only peanut butter, jelly, cheese, avocado, carrot, and honey sandwich. Maybe not my personal favorite, but he loved it. He had a great time. And it was here that I realized after this happened and I became this delegation consultant, this process consultant, I realized I was actually failing at delegation, that I had some work to do of my own. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. The worksheet that is in the chat is for you to follow along. And if you actually fill that out as we're going through today's session, you are going to have one of your tasks pretty close to being ready to just delegate. So I really encourage you, go ahead and click on that link and start filling it out as we go along. It'll definitely be worth the time. So let's talk about what gets in the way of delegation. I find that there are typically 3 things. The first one is a mindset. A lot of times people come in to approach delegation and they have one of 3 things that's going through their mind. One, they don't actually think it's possible to delegate a thing that they want to delegate. They're like, I just don't know if anybody could do this thing the way that I can do it. Another one might be, it doesn't really take that much time. I can just go in cold. I can just sit next to my person and show them how to do it. And that's how you delegate. You just roll your chair up next to someone, you show them how to do it, and yay, I've delegated it. That's the wrong mindset. And the third wrong mindset I hear from a lot of people, or maybe I don't even hear it because a lot of times people don't realize it. They don't actually want to delegate. They're not ready. They're not ready to give up the thing that would actually free them up to be able to spend time on the most important things in their business. And I know that that's why you all are here. You know there are things in your business that you are doing that you shouldn't be doing because they're not the best use of your time and your energy. And so those mindsets are getting in your way. And so if you are ready to kind of let those mindsets go, let's get a thumbs up or a yes in the chat for anybody who's like, yep, I'm ready to let go of those mindsets. We're not doing that anymore. We believe delegation is possible. We believe that, it takes more than sitting next to somebody. And yes, I actually want to delegate. Anybody in there? Anybody want to do it? Oh, there we go. Chat is disabled. Oh no. Thanks for letting me know, Jenny. Looks like chat is disabled. All right, well, we'll keep moving. So wrong mindset is the first one. I assume everybody's not going to do that. So the next one is lack of skill. Delegation is a skill, just like, learning to ride a bike, learning to write an essay, all those things we did as younger kids. It's a skill that you develop. Well, we're going to cover that today. You're going to learn the skill and you have a resource even for how to do it. So this is not going to be an issue by the end of the session. Yay, there's my thumbs up and yes is rolling in. Awesome. And the last one, a little controversial, laziness. It does take work. It takes a little bit of preparation. It takes a little bit of effort to delegate well and to make sure that the people have what they need. And actually, I see it as an act of kindness, an act of love that you show to your team when you do that preparation to delegate well. And when you don't do that preparation to delegate well, it is actually just laziness because you haven't thought through what it is that needs to be delegated and how it needs to be done. So we're going to throw all that away. We're not going to have any of these things. We're not going to have any of these obstacles. And today we're going to go ahead and move forward. So no more wrong mindset. Let's get to the skill, get to developing this skill. So today specifically, as we're talking, we are going to be talking about one-off tasks. We're not going to be talking about routine tasks. I'm sorry, other way around. We are talking about routine tasks, not one-off tasks. So routine tasks are tasks that happen again and again and again in your business. These are the best tasks to delegate because you will get a really good ROI on delegating them. Because once you delegate that to someone, every time they do it instead of you, you're saving time. And of course, time is money. So routine tasks is what we're focusing on. And we are focusing on one task today. And you should already have this delegation form that you had in the beginning. So open that up, make a copy. I want you right now to pick a task that if you could get it off your plate, it would be glorious, because this is something that you don't want to do. It's something that you do again and again and again, and you are actually ready to let somebody else do this task. So you would put that right up here in the task name field. If we're going to delegate, we have to choose the right person to delegate to. And this is where a lot of delegation goes wrong. If we choose somebody that does not have the right skills and the right talents to do the thing, we are going to be disappointed. And guess what? So are they, because you've now set them up to not be successful. You've set them up for failure. So we want to make sure that we are clear on what skills and talents are required to do the task. Now, skills and talents are different. Let me tell you about the difference between the two just briefly. Talents are those things that kind of, we embody these traits. We've always kind of been this way, and it doesn't really matter what we're doing. We kind of show up this way all the time. So for example, when I was young, I enjoyed organizing my mom's kitchen cabinets. I like to bring order to things. It's just a thing that I love to do. And no matter what role I have, no matter what task I do, that will be something that I am drawn to do. It's a talent of mine. On the other hand, skills are things that can be taught. They're things that you just need to learn the steps and then you can do them. Now, of course, they're enhanced by having the right talents, of course, but they are skills. So for example, learning how to use Photoshop might be a skill for a particular task that I want to delegate. And I might need to make sure that the person that's doing that task has that skill. So just think for a minute, for your task, maybe you've got detail-oriented, they need to be creative, and they need to be dependent. These are all talents. These are all traits that show up again and again and again for people. And maybe you've got 2 people on your team that you might consider giving this task. Well, if you need them to have all 3 of these talents, then we can't have Mel doing this task because Mel's not the most dependable person. And let's say the task is like filing some sort of certificate that has to be done at the end of every project. And if you don't, it's the worst thing ever. Well, we need that dependability every single time. So we're more likely going to give that to Dan. So I recommend making a table just like this when you're assessing who you want to delegate to, and just figuring out, well, what are the talents and skills that I really need, and who do I have on my team? And when you think backwards in reverse, it helps you really assess and really be able to target which things that you need to make sure are in alignment for someone. If you don't have a fit on your team, I do not recommend that you delegate. And I know that that might seem a little bit challenging because you're like, well, how am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to delegate if I don't have anyone on my team who has the talents and skills to do this? In that case, you have 2 choices. You either need to, yes, keep that task for the time being until you do have someone, or this is an opportunity to, maybe it's hire a VA, maybe it's, find somebody else. Maybe it's hiring a consultant or outsourcing. A lot of people, one of the first tasks they list that they want to delegate is their bookkeeping. Well, that's a great opportunity to just outsource that to a bookkeeping company that can take all that on for you. But if you have someone on your team that doesn't have a match, don't just kind of wedge it in there. It will not go well. Again, setting yourself and that person up for failure. Most importantly, you need to make sure you trust them. So that kind of litmus test of, do I trust that they can handle this, that they can get it done? Step 2, write down what done looks like. What most people do, like I said, when they delegate something, is they roll their chair next to the person, or they hop on a Zoom meeting and they just start walking through the steps of how to do it. Yeah, that's part of it. That's part of how you delegate something, but it is absolutely not where you start. Where you start, once you have the right person and you know you can delegate it, where you start is by yourself, determining what done looks like. So what does a successful completion of this task look like? Your person needs to ultimately be able to state that purpose. So you need to write it down. And they need to have a written list of standards for what done looks like. So for your task that you came up with, down here in this standards section, there's a section that says, what are the minimum expectations for how this gets done? And then up here on the top, there's one that says task purpose. So I'm going to just kind of take an example of cleaning the bathroom. This is something that I have slowly been trying to delegate to my children for some time now. It has not been successful just yet. But if I were writing the task purpose down, I would say the purpose of cleaning the bathroom is so that we have a clean and healthy place to get ready, to use the restroom, and so that we're all staying healthy and clean. This matters because we all want to be healthy and clean. We want to not be, having gross stuff all over the floor. Whatever it is, you're writing for the audience you're writing for. In my case, I'm thinking about my kids. But these 2 lines here are really important as you're writing this plan, this delegation form, to communicate why this matters to you and what the purpose is. It's a funny step that a lot of people miss. Then when it comes to standards, this is where you're going through and figuring out what done looks like. And so for me, what done looks like is no clutter on the countertops. It looks like no towels or clothes or any objects on the floor except the bath mat. It means sinks are clean without any soap or anything like that. And I'm just going to literally bullet point, what does done look like? I'm not telling them how to do it. I'm not explaining spray the nozzle and do the thing. Just what does it look like when it's done? I've even seen some of these where someone will record a video or take a picture of what it looks like when it's done. And imagine that clarity of being able to see, oh, here's what the counter looks like when it's done. So if you can get really clear about what done looks like, once you hand that off, now your person that you're giving this to is like, oh, I get it. I know where I'm headed. Of course, they may need some instruction on how to do it, but this is the most important spot. And this is the part, by the way, that I messed up when I delegated to my son. I didn't tell him that I wanted a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I just kind of let him figure out whatever it was he thought lunch meant. And what I will tell you is, if you don't define what's important, they will. If you have a super creative person, they get excited about being super creative, and they're going to go ahead and add in little touches and flares. That may not be what you want on this particular task. And so it's really essential that you, the delegator, define what the end result needs to look like. So that takes us to 3. So we've done a great job. We know exactly who we're delegating to. We have really clearly defined what the end result needs to look like. And now we need to think about what it is that they're going to need to be successful. So in the case of a lot of businesses, we run our entire business is run online. And so I would need for anybody that I'm delegating to, I would need to provide them with login credentials. Maybe I'm sharing them through, a password sharing app like LastPass. I would probably have some templates, some manuals, some documents, who knows? There could be a bunch of different things. I don't want to delegate this task until I've thought through all of the different resources that this person is going to need and put them in one place. So think through that. Think through what those passwords need to be. Think through, anything that they're going to need in the computer world or in the resource world, physical resources that they're going to need to be successful. Then who's there to help them? Do you want them to come to you if they get stuck? Do you want them to go to somebody else? Is there another person in another organization that they need to interface with and they're going to need some contact information? So taking the time to think through this and make a list of the resources they need is a really helpful thing so that they can be successful and not end up, just kind of having to come back to you 6 times after you've delegated it to see what each of these little extra pieces of information are. So let's take a moment then and list your resources. So that's right here. Your resources, your tools, your templates, your login info. Right now, don't worry about getting the actual links in, but maybe just make a little quick list of what are some of the resources that you need to provide to the person that you're giving this. And so as I think about my task of cleaning the bathroom, I'm going to want to make sure I have the glass cleaner, the counter cleaner. Let's see, some rags, some clean rags. They're going to need, fresh towels, because I want them to replace the towels. So you get the idea. Gloves, thank you. Yes, gloves. We need to stay clean and protected from all those highly potent chemicals. So list out your resources there. And then who else is involved or who can help? So in this case, it's really just my husband and I, and basically they can just come to us if they get stuck. So I would just list that. If you get stuck, come to Dad or to me. So who else for your task is involved and can help? All right. So now we get to step 4. And this, of course, is the step that everybody starts with. And we already did 3 other things before we even got to this one. And this is the training. And the really interesting thing is a lot of times you don't even need to do this part. Now, in my example of cleaning the bathroom, for sure, I need to train them on how to do it. I need to show them how to wash the counters. I need to show them how to clean the mirrors. I need to show them that once you've used the towel and it's all gross, like don't just keep rubbing it around, get a new towel. They will need that training. But when you go back to my first example of the sandwich, my son knows he knew perfectly well how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. There was no need for me to make a step-by-step tutorial for him. But what I did need to do was to provide him with standards. So what I want to say to you is, depending on the complexity of the task, you may or may not need to provide them with step-by-step of how to do things. So I hear you. This is the step that people get stuck on. Because when you think about having to write down everything in how to do something, people get kind of overwhelmed. Like, how specific should I get? I don't know how to write an SOP. This takes too long. This is boring, whatever. I've heard it all. This is literally what we do for our business, is we write SOPs and we write processes. And so we hear these things all the time. And what I'm here to tell you is, most of you in this room, in this virtual room, do not need to learn how to write an SOP. Aren't you relieved? Most of you in this room, all you need to learn how to do is use a video capture, use some kind of screen capture. I love Loom. There are others. But what Loom is, or what a video capturing tool will do, is it allows you to share your screen, or to record your screen and or your face explaining how to do something. And so this is the greatest hack ever for training someone. You sit down, you record a Loom of how to do whatever it is. So let's say it's how to run payroll. You walk through the steps, you record your screen, you pretend like someone's sitting right next to you. You do not worry about perfection. You do not worry about saying the right things. If you mess up, you just keep rolling and you fix it, because every time you mess up, it's teaching them how they fix it when they mess up. You pretend like they're literally sitting next to you and you record what you do. By the way, Loom has a phone app. So you can install the phone app, and then if you need to, let's say you have like a manufacturing facility or you go out to clients' homes, you can take that and you can actually film that process in real life, and then it will create a link for you that is that video. Then all you do is you send that video, or you include that video in the how-to for your person. That is how you train them on how to do it. Don't worry about writing the steps. Don't worry about going, every little thing and writing an SOP. What most people think an operations manual has to be, it doesn't need to be that fancy. It doesn't need to be that formal. So if there's anything you take away, you have a process consultant who does this for a living, who's giving you permission to not write SOPs in the traditional way. As long as you write down the standards for how it should look like when it's done, the resources that they need to do it, all you need to provide them with is a video of how to do it. So you're welcome. For today, maybe just take a moment and jot down a few of the steps. So that would go here in instructions. But of course, you know that my bias is just to put a link. So if you have a video, great. If not, download the Loom app and go ahead and record a video, maybe right after the session, and drop it right in there. The next step after that is you can give the person who you've delegated it to responsibility later for actually writing out those steps. So although I said you don't need to write the SOP, eventually you do want those SOPs and you want them to be created. And your team, once they're really familiar with how that process looks, they can actually write them out for you. In fact, they can probably recreate the video, which is a lovely, lovely thing. Somebody said, how is Loom different than just recording a video on your phone? That's great. So what Loom will do is you create an account. And so all of the videos that you create are housed in a shared account. So you can make users for, you can have other people on your team be users, and then any videos they create go into your single Loom account. And then the other lovely thing is it will auto-generate a link for you. So you don't have to worry about like downloading the link or uploading it to YouTube or Vimeo or anything like that. It just does it for you really quick. So when it comes to like quick documentation, quick capturing, and quick sharing of information, it's really fantastic. All right, so hopefully you got at least a couple steps of instructions, but remember, we don't even need to do instructions if the person has the skills to do it and if they know exactly what your standards are. So this is an interesting piece of the training process, and I feel pretty strongly about it. I've seen the power of this again and again with our clients and even in our own experiences. A lot of times when we train, we explain how to do it. We explain the steps of how to do it, but we don't create space for the right amount of shadowing and observation. So shadowing is when you are having the new person who's going to do it shadow you or another expert. Observation is when you are observing that person performing the task. If it's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, it's probably not necessary to shadow and observe. Like, I'm going to know really quickly if you're doing it right. But if it's something that's more detailed, like cleaning a bathroom, or like conducting a sales call, or I had somebody ask me in a session before about they have cleaners come to like an Airbnb and clean the home, and they want to actually make sure it's getting done right. When you want to make sure it's done right, it is essential that you intentionally plan for shadowing and observation. So before you even delegate, decide, how many times do I want this person to observe an expert performing this duty? Is it once? Is it 3 times? Is it 10 times? It obviously is going to depend on, how probably client facing or customer facing the task is, how high risk the task is. But think about, how many times do I want this person to observe an expert? And then, even more importantly, how many times do I want an expert on my team, or maybe myself, to observe this person doing it before I'm going to say, yep, you've got it? When you are intentional about this, it's like this beautiful check and balance to make sure that they are going to be successful. And what I would recommend is you make the person who you're delegating to own the responsibility of making sure those shadows get completed and making sure those observations get completed. So it is on them to make sure they schedule that time, or they get with you, or they find the person who's giving the tour and shadow them, whatever it is. So you're not having to manage it. You're just making sure that it gets done. And the way that you can do that, well, and this is the main point. If you haven't seen them do it correctly, there's no reason to believe that they can. You're basically just like, well, I hope they can do it. I showed them how to do it. I told them why it was important. I gave them the resources, and then I just left them to their own devices. Think about how many times you've done that. Think about how many times you've shown someone how to do something and then never actually watched them do it and given them feedback and kind of given them support. So the way that I like to do this, and it's down here at the bottom of your screen, is I actually, when I delegate to someone, I define for them what they need to do. And so shadows, you're going to kind of put in here how many shadows they need to do. So is it 5? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? However many. And then how many observations, which just got cut off a little bit, how many observations you want them to have. So in other words, the expert that you want to observe them doing it. And then it's their responsibility to mark that they've done 3 out of 3 or 5 out of 3 or whatever it is. And by doing that, you're basically saying, they're saying and they're advocating that, yes, I have done this and it's been completed to the way that it's supposed to be. The last step, step 5, is the one that kind of gets missed, and it's creating a communication plan. So a communication plan is not just a communication to the person that's being delegated to, but we also need to communicate to anyone else who needs to be in the know that this thing has been delegated. Let's say you're always the one who answers Facebook questions. Well, when you delegate that to a VA to, reply on Facebook or do whatever it is, the rest of your team needs to be aware that that transition has happened, so that if anything goes wrong or if anything's strange, they know who to go to address that. And so when I say make a communication plan, it's a couple of different things. You need to make sure that your person knows who to go to get their process approved. And again, this may not be relevant. Not every task you delegate needs to be approved. Like my peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I don't need to approve the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but I do need to approve the bathroom cleaning. So they need to know who they need to go to. And you know what? Maybe after a month, I don't need to approve it anymore. And I can tell them that. I can say, hey, you guys are doing great. I don't need to approve this anymore. But we need to be really clear about that communication with them. And next, when the delegation is complete. So everybody needs to know when this task has officially been handed off. I can't tell you how many times I've seen things kind of half delegated, meaning a person's been trained how to do it and they are doing it, but they don't really feel like they have ownership over it because they don't feel like the other person has let go of it all the way. That the other person's like kind of hovering or like meddling or checking in. I'm sure none of you are resonating with this right now. So you want to be clear that there's a point to say like, okay, this is yours now. You don't need to check in with me anymore unless you get stuck. You can steal that phrase, whatever you want to say, but there's a clear like handoff point where now this is yours and it's not mine anymore. On the delegation form at the bottom here, there's a little date box. Like you can use this if you'd like as a formal like certificate of delegation, if you will. It's just meant to be a tool. It's not meant to be like super rigid, but mark down what date did this get delegated, and then have both the delegator and the person who's taking it initial that, yes, I understand that this is mine now and that I need to meet these standards every time that this gets done. It needs to be on time and it needs to have these parts completed, whatever it is. It's a nice way to really have clarity about who owns what. So this delegation form, it's kind of a lot, right? 15 minutes. For most processes or most tasks, I think it takes about 15 minutes. Now, obviously that is not the case with more complex things. Certainly, you know, really mission critical tasks, you want to take your time. But let's make a minimum amount of time, 15 minutes. If you can dedicate 15 minutes to fill out this delegation form every time you hand off a task to somebody, you could save hours because you are giving them all of the information they need to be successful right from the start. Instead of all the follow-up questions, instead of the missteps, instead of the mistakes that you're going to have to go back and fix. Of course, there'll be mistakes still, guys. I'm not saying this is going to solve the world, but that 15 minutes that you invest can save you time and can save you money. Even just as important, it is, like I said earlier, a gift to your team. It shows your team, I actually care about you enough to sit down for 15 minutes and get this out of my head and think about what is it that I actually, you know, the question that I find I ask a lot for business owners is, what's the thing that keeps you up at night about this task? You know, like you think about that nightmare scenario. If I hand this off, this is going to happen and this is going to happen and this is going to happen. Put that in your standards. Like, no, you can't do this. And please, like, make sure when you're on Zoom that you're, you know, nothing crazy is happening behind you, and make sure that, you know, your internet is good. Whatever those things that worry you, those go in the standards so that when you're delegating them, you can kind of uncover what those issues are. So this is just such a great way to show that you care and to show that you're the kind of person that prioritizes their people's success. That's what you want to build, right? You want to build a team full of people who feel super successful and feel like capable people that are equipped to do the tasks you're giving them. Not like, you know, having to do a treasure hunt to figure out how to read your mind about what it is that you want them to do. I recommend when you fill the delegation form out to go ahead and send that to the person before you sit down with them to review it, so that they can kind of get their brain around what it is that you're going to learn together before you actually walk through the steps. Also, they get a chance to ask clarifying questions. Some people really are quiet processors. They need time to think and process. So you want to be sure that you give them that time and let them look over it beforehand. Then when you sit down with them, walk through it together and edit as you go, because guess what? You're going to have forgotten things. They're going to ask questions that are going to help you realize things you need to clarify. And you may come up with some things that you're like, oh, I thought this was really important, but no, this is actually not that important. So you'll go through it and you'll make it really clear together. Then, as I said before, my favorite, you make them responsible for completing the shadows and observations. So, okay, I've given this to you. Look here, you're supposed to do 3 observations and 3 shadows. You know, I think you could probably get those done by next week. So let's set up a meeting to check in 2 weeks. so that we can make sure you've gotten those done, and you can ask any remaining questions that you have. And now that's on them to take that and run with it. And then, of course, we want to make sure we're clear about how they'll know when it's theirs. And so if you set that meeting for, let's say, 2 weeks later, maybe it's 3 months later, whatever. If you set that meeting and then you both sign off at the end to say, okay, Johnny, this is yours now, you own this, there's going to be no question that now, yes, it's theirs. And if there is a question, you can point back to the document that they signed. Should clear anything up. The question I always get is, how do I make sure they continue to do it right? All we've talked about so far is how to delegate it in the first place, how to kind of get it off your hands into a place where, like, okay, now this is yours. That does not guarantee that this amazing delegation, that they're going to keep performing at those standards. So that's more into performance management. That's more into supervision. But I would say, just kind of as a short way to answer this, I like to just schedule a few check-ins in the next few months, depending on the task. Again, if it's peanut butter and jelly sandwich level stuff, like, I don't think you probably need to check in on it. But if it's something where it's like a sales call, where like you want to make sure that they're still keeping with the standards that you have laid out and that you've observed, set up a calendar reminder in a month, and then at a 2-month mark, to just pop in and observe what's going on, so that you're keeping that fresh and you're making sure that they're on track. But really, once you delegate, they're starting to be more into the performance management side of things, which is a whole other conversation outside of this one. So guys, I am so proud of us. We no longer have the wrong mindset. We all fully believe that delegation is possible. We know it takes longer than just rolling our chair up next to somebody and telling them words. And of course, we really do want to do it. We also no longer have a lack of skill. We've all learned these amazing skills together, hooray. But we haven't addressed laziness. And so what I want to leave you with today is that this is a choice. How you delegate is ultimately up to you. And I know you all work incredibly hard on your business. I know you all put a ton of effort into everything that you do. For some reason, delegating these ticky-tacky things, this is a place that I see really smart, really capable people get lazy. And so I want you to see it as a choice. I want you to see that if you choose to do it differently, you can have a different outcome to how the people that you're delegating to are performing. So please don't be a lazy delegator. I do have a little checklist as well that you can download here at this link, theprocessmavens.com/delegation/checklist. I can see in the chat someone sharing the link to the delegation form that we worked through today. So if you didn't get a chance to grab that, that's there as well. But yeah, I'm excited for all of you. I think your team is going to be very impressed with you when you start showing off these new skills. So I think I'll open it up for questions. I do see one in the Q&A from Evelyn, the difference between a shadow and an observation. So a shadow is when they are shadowing you or some other expert. They're just following you around. Maybe you give them, a checklist or some notes they take while they follow you around on that task and watch you do it. An observation is you observing them doing it to standards. So you've got your standards, you're just going to watch them do the thing, and you're going to observe them and make sure that they can complete it to the specifications that you asked. Any other questions? Looks like
while we're waiting for some more questions, go ahead and fill those in the Q&A. Tamara, great example with the lunch with the youngster, because one of the things I found over my career is sometimes when we delegate, and even if we know that that person understands how to do the task we think they're going to do, sometimes they surprise us in a good way.
That's right.
4-year-old went above and beyond the expectations and added some vegetables in their lunch.
He sure did.
And sometimes our employees will do that too. We can, we have the expectation of this is the job that needs to be done. Make sure you celebrate when they do that above and beyond.
That's right.
And let them know that it is okay to exceed expectations.
That's right. Yep. I would have been very okay with this sandwich if I was not going to be eating it. Oh, Evelyn, that's awesome. Evelyn says she realized she was a little lazy. Yeah. Hey, me too. We've all done it. And I say that, you know, with complete affection, because I know we all are guilty of just wanting to kind of, you know, throw out some steps and be like, okay, here, real quick, I'm going to show you how to do this. You got it? And then the person's like, yeah, I got it. And then you walk away and they don't got it. And a little more time invested really does pay off. Yes, positive feedback. I love it. I love it. Yeah, when they do something and they surprise you in a good way, yeah, give them some feedback and let them know that was really awesome. And that's the benefit of having the right person in the task as well. You get the right person with the right talents and skills, more often than not, they will surprise you in a good way. Is it okay to allow the person you delegate to try their own ideas if the result is what you want it done? Yes. So the standards, remember, those are the non-negotiables. So you need to decide what it looks like when it's done. But if you don't care how they get to that finished point, totally feel free to let them be creative, to let them do whatever they want. It's just the standards that you as the delegator must provide.
All right, I'm going to post in the chat here the link for the checklist that she has there on the screen. So if you just want to click on that, it'll take you to Tamara's page where you can download that and sign up for her other information. Let's see, we have like Tamara, did you see the question in there from Jim? I'm sorry, I might have missed that while I was
from Jim. Yep, I answered.
Sorry about that. I was trying to pull up that link so everybody could have it.
No problem. No problem. I would say one other question that I get a lot, and I'll just mention this, is people ask me, well, when I delegate to like a contractor or a freelancer who kind of has their own way of doing things, do I use this form? Like, what do I do in that situation? In that situation, I actually would still use the form. And again, I would only do the parts up to the step-by-step instructions. So I would still define what does done look like, what are the standards for what I'm looking for, and what resources do I have to provide them with. Now, as you go through that, you may come to realize that their standards are even higher than yours, and you may be delighted. But you don't, in those cases, have to tell them how to do it, because if you're hiring a contractor or a freelancer, it's assumed that they already have a procedure of how they do things. You're just letting them know like what it is you need from them from an outcome standpoint. What is the Loom site? Yeah, contractors, it can be frustrating, but at least you feel like you've done your part. That's absolutely right. So many times when we go into a contractor freelancer arrangement, we're kind of like, we feel like we're sort of throwing the dice and who knows what we're going to get. But if you do the work to define what done looks like before you even engage them, they can say, yeah, that's reasonable, or no, that's totally not what I do. And you can have those uncomfortable conversations up front rather than getting into it a month or two and being like, why are you not doing the thing that I wanted you to do? And they thought they were doing the thing they wanted you to do. I think Loom is Loom. Oh, there you go. Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, I posted in the chat. Make sure it's LOOM, not LUM, because there's, you might end up on the wrong site.
Yeah.
And order some cannabis while you're there. So use LOOM. So excellent. I don't see any other questions. This is a great presentation, Tamara. Thank you very much. Great information, great examples. I hope everybody liked the worksheet that Tamara provided. That will be included with the recording. So for those that go back and watch the recording can access it, or if you want to go back and access it again at that point. But again, great presentation. Glad to have you with us. And since we don't have any more questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up a couple minutes early.
Yeah.
And thank you everybody for being with us. We hope you join us next week. Just one last note, if you're in Arizona, today is primary day, so make sure you get out and get your votes in for whatever candidates you decide you want to vote for. but take advantage of that and get your vote in. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Again, everybody have a great day and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.